Welcome everyone to our June Cabinet meeting. Special welcome to those that are in the chamber and the public gallery, but also those officers and colleagues on the virtual meeting. As everyone will know, this meeting is live streamed and we are now recording. It is a physical public meeting taking place in Hackney Town Hall, and as we know, the meeting is live streamed and recorded. Welcome to those that are watching the live stream as well. There are no cabinet members or cabinet deputy cabinet members joining virtually. Everyone's in the room, so there's nobody that is both not being recorded as present. And as usual, the decisions will be published after the meeting. In terms of sort of opening remarks, I don't have any strategic opening remarks, but did want to pay tribute to Lord Clinton Davis, who was a councillor and MP for Hackney. We're going to do our main tributes to him with members of his family at full council at the end of July, but I did just want to mark his sad passing, given his long history of representation in Hackney and beyond. And then I did want to also highlight, and I think we will be talking more about this at full council, but both Aled Richards and Andy Wells are leaving the council over the course of the next month, and they're very much known to us at cabinet level, and especially Andy Wells in our emergency planning team and civic response has been an enormous source of strength over, I think, decades here at Hackney. But again, we'll pay tribute in more detail at full council. In terms of moving into the meeting proper, I've got apologies for absence from Councillor Mackenzie. Are there any other apologies for absence? I might insert a lateness from Councillor Coban, because I was expecting to see him shortly, so we'll put a lateness in there. In terms of urgent business, there's been no urgent items of business made aware to me. Are there any declarations of interest that aren't already recorded? No. In terms of item 4, notice of intention to conduct business in private, there is an exempt item under item 16. There isn't, sorry. So there isn't, even better. So we've got no exempt items this evening, so that's good. There have been no prior questions from opposition leaders, members of the public, or any deputations received. So we can move into item 6, which is the minutes of the previous meeting of Cabinet held on the 22nd of May 2023. Do we have any comments on those unrestricted minutes? No. No. Are we happy to approve them? Great, thank you. Item 7 is the unrestricted meetings of the previous meeting of Cabinet Procurement and Insourcing Committee. Councillor Chapman, I'll hand over to you, but I do want to highlight that although it didn't take place at this CPIC, Councillor Chapman, we have just celebrated the insourcing of our parking enforcement service in the last month, and that was a huge piece of work undertaken by council officers, but also the committee, I think, had some oversight there as well. But hand over to you for the minutes.
Thank you, Chair. That was yes. I'm glad you brought that to the Cabinet's attention, and obviously we're really proud of that moment in our journey on insourcing, which will continue. I won't detain Cabinet too long on this, but just to point out another item on this agenda was the decarbonisation of heating in commercial buildings, which is again a major step on our journey towards net zero Hackney, which allowed us to apply the public sector decarbonisation scheme grant, which we reported to Cabinet earlier this year, to introduce heat pumps into 9 major council buildings, including leisure centres and some schools. So most of our leisure centres, and also Stoke Newington Town Hall and Library. So that I'll rest there and ask the committee to note the minutes.
Thanks very much. Really welcome, and I know it's a testament to the work of the teams that have put together those projects, and now it's good to see them out to procurement. And obviously we've talked previously at the meeting about the drawing down of public sector decarbonisation funding to help fund them. Are we happy to agree the unrestricted minutes of CPIC? Great, great. So item 8 is the capital update and property disposals. At first reading, you might think it is a fairly dry update compared to some of the investment we've outlined in previous meetings, but actually the investment in safeguarding the viability and future of the Oswald Bay Centre is incredibly important, having visited the centre a couple of months ago, and I know is at the heart of our Ageing Well work. The investment in continuing platform capabilities and data analytics is incredibly important to not just our cyber recovery, but continuing to be sector leaders around our digital work. So again, just to highlight that. And then the building access management system not only helps safeguard our buildings and our staff, but will help us deliver Space Bank 2.0 and increase the options that are available to us for opening and closing and providing secure access to our non-campus buildings, including our estate community halls, without some of the bureaucracy that we have at the moment. So potentially really exciting. And then the final one of the 1.5 is obviously draw down the investment that we were successful in bidding for in terms of our levelling up funding bid for Hackney Central, which is approximately £20 million being invested in our town centre. So those are probably the things I wanted to highlight. Are there any questions or comments from Cabinet colleagues? No? Are we happy to agree the recommendations and the report? Agreed. Thank you very much indeed. Back to you, Councillor Chapman, to the overall financial position report.
Thank you, Mayor. There are two issues I want to highlight in this report. First, we're reporting an overspend of 7.013 million for last financial year. Obviously, it's not, we're disappointed to report an overspend, but this is an improvement on the position we reported in February of some 800,000. And I think it really shows credit to the work of my Cabinet colleagues and the officers in containing the pressures that are on the council, which, as we all know, continue, and we continue to face a difficult financial position going forward. And I think the demonstration of being able to keep this under control in the way we have is good stead for sound financial management in the future. The second item is acceptance of the grant of 2.782 million in the current financial year from the Mayor of London to fund free school meals for primary school pupils. Obviously, we welcome the initiative of the Mayor of London to help families with the spiralling cost of living and to guarantee healthy meals to every primary school student. We support the Mayor of London's call on the government to provide free school meals to all primary school children, as poverty impacts way beyond those families that qualify under the current restricted eligibility criteria for free school meals. And lastly, you'll recall, Mayor, that the council passed a right to food motion earlier this year, when we in turn called on the government to do just this.
Thanks very much, Councillor Chapman. So again, some important strategic issues as well as the overall financial position being covered there. Are we happy to note and agree those recommendations? Yeah, agreed. Brilliant. So item 10 is the adoption of the Green Infrastructure Strategy and Local Nature Recovery Plan. I'll hand over to Councillor Woodley, but just welcome Jerry Tissier, who's at the back, who I know has been tracking this work probably from before its inception, if we're really honest. I obviously met you through Daubney Fields Forever and some of the work that you were doing there, and I think the leadership in both Daubney Fields, the Mably project, 10 Times Greener, all of those projects in the area has been really valued by me and the administration. I think you're now, if I get it right, Green Space and Biodiversity Lead for Sustainable Hackney. Congratulations, and really also exciting. And I know that Councillor Woodley's going to talk about some of the things that we perhaps will be working with you and the community networks that you are part of and indeed are leading in her opening remarks. But I'd also just like to pay tribute to everyone that's been involved in the Green Infrastructure Strategy and the Local Nature Recovery Plan. Councillor Woodley.
Thank you, Chair. You know, I've been very much looking forward to this day because this has been out for consultation some time ago. We rightly waited for the Climate Action Plan to come forward because this ties into the green and resilient aspect of the Climate Action Plan. And it's absolutely central to our vision for a greener and healthier Hackney. I think it's fair to say that residents, volunteer groups, but also colleagues across the council and across so many services have really had their imagination captured by this work. So not only really leading figures like Jerry, but also so many volunteer groups, Wildlife Gardeners of Haggerston, obviously our Tree Musketeers, the Growing Kitchen, Cordwainers Grow, Ian Phillips doing all the habitat building work, Russell Miller, Abney Trust, Hoxton, you know, I could just go on and on. All these people that give up their time because they really care about retaining and protecting the natural world within even as densely packed and heavily built borough like Hackney. And when I think about my council colleagues, whether that's Councillor Mackenzie, ensuring that residents have a say when we're greening within our housing estates and understand that kind of combination of really well maintained, really cared for grounds, but also leaving space for nature, leaving longer grass, Victoria Meadows here, piloting different kinds of planting, different kinds of working, telling us when we get it right, telling us when we get it wrong. We've had so many just wonderful, heartening comments about the wildflower meadows, the Victorial meadows. I think a recognition that even where we don't have the pretty flowers kind of explaining that we're doing this for the benefit and the joy and the beauty and the aesthetics of the borough, but also we just leave grass long in some places, people can see that we're managing it really well. We're sort of mowing pathways through, we're demonstrating that this is managed, you know, rewilding in various areas, and it has a real impact in terms of mitigating biodiversity loss. And I'm hearing, because of the extreme weather we saw last year, that even where we have these meadows, these longer grass, these kind of extra activities in place, that we're still seeing less insects out, and that's, you know, that's harmful and that's damaging and that's worrying. So we have so much more work to do. We're also aware that we had a Category 1 pollution event in the Lee, and that seems for a moment to undo all the amazing work of our volunteers who are working on nature, river restoration as part of our nature recovery work. And yet what we can do through the adoption of the Green Infrastructure Strategy is work in closer partnerships, whether that's with the Environment Agency, whether that's with our volunteer groups, working with groups like Thames 21. We can get together to ensure that we can do more mitigation and have better preparation and prevention when we have these environmental events. So I just want to thank really all the officers across all the services, and I should also speak to Councillor Kennedy and the recognition that this work is really important to sort of health and well-being, of course, Councillor Nicholson, and the work we're going to be doing as we sort of see the biodiversity net gain legislation coming in from November, the work we're doing across the structure of our staffing. So we're going to be bringing more focus on biodiversity into our housing service, into planning with a biodiversity officer, into parts of green spaces with a biodiversity officer. And that's not easy when we have less resource, you know, and already really pressured staff. So in some cases, it's about lobbying government, drawing down funding and making best use of it, as we're doing in planning. In other aspects, it means a staff restructure. Now, that's a slower process, but, you know, it is underway and we're determined to make that work. Following consultation, we're really pleased to bring the vision date for the strategy forward to 2030. We're absolutely emphasising our focus on the local nature recovery plan and its core principles to protect what is best, increase connectivity between the best habitats and create new habitat and features for wildlife. We know, if Councillor Coburn was here, he'd be nodding, that we have to, oh, he is here, hello, that we have to mitigate the issues of the urban heat island, of surface water flooding. And so this work is tied into really serious plans around transport, air pollution, air quality, and, you know, the local plan, in fact. So, you know, it really is a cross-service, cross-cabinet, cross-borough in terms of our volunteers and community groups piece of work. And they're all going to hold us to account. So we have to make sure that we get a really clear set of objectives forward and somehow fund it and make it all happen. So yeah, thank you.
Brilliant. And I think your suggestion that Jerry represents in the room so many others like the Three Musketeers and Dobby and others that work in the Lee, I think is an absolutely right one, and we welcome that challenge, as you said. And I don't think there's anyone in this room that hasn't planted a tree, been a part of some sustainable urban drainage, been on a park inspection or walk with one of park user groups, or been in the Lee, or done any of the rewilding. I think we've all been involved in those different things, and that's a testament to how much we care. To put on the public record, it used to be a big grill fill thing, as you just highlighted. We now have biodiversity officer incapacity in planning and in the work around the green infrastructure strategy and parks and green spaces. So that is something that we're able to say that we have delivered on. I think, you know, the wildflower meadows have now reached my favourite Instagram account, which is the Real Housewives of Clapton, and captured the public imagination in a way that goes way beyond the groups that we've been talking about. On a more serious level, when Deputy Mayor Bramble, Councillor Coburn and I were at the Co-op conference in Manchester, we raised really clearly our concerns about the Lee with the Shadow Minister, Shadow Secretary of State, Jim McMahon, and I think we will use what we're doing here to continue to lobby both government and the Shadow Front Bench about how we need additional support to deliver on this ambition and the expectations that our residents have. Does anyone else have any questions or comments? Councillor Coburn.
I'll be very brief, Chair. I just want to firstly pay tribute to my colleague, Councillor Woodley, for all the work that she's done, and obviously officers for bringing this to where we are now. And really just to build on, we obviously had the climate action plan that came through to Cabinet previously, and I think this really adds sort of meat on the bone and really demonstrates where we are sort of heading in relation to sort of our ambitions around climate. And obviously, everything that we've been doing very ambitiously around transport, our low traffic neighbourhoods, the green infrastructure strategy is all about trying to create those green corridors in between and making sure that we're helping improve air quality, helping people get about. But also it sort of signals the sort of the types of visions of streets that we want to have in the future. And the 21st century street model on Culverstone is obviously an important project for the council, and it's a model that I know that both Councillor Woodley and I are very ambitious, looking forward to sort of delivering. But it's something that people in Hackney can aspire to live through. So, I think it's not just about responding to climate change, but it's also about setting out the aspiration about the future of our neighbourhoods for people of Hackney.
Are we happy to agree? Great. Thank you. Thank you again to Councillor Woodley and everyone, and echo Councillor Coburn's remarks. Moving on to item 11, which is the consultation on staying in public spaces, protection order, dog control, which is the other side of making our parks and green spaces an inclusive space, isn't it, Councillor Joanna Thomas?
Thank you, Mayor Glanville. This paper has come before Cabinet tonight asking for approval for a consultation exercise in relation to the renew and varying the existing public spaces protection order, which will place control on dogs in our borough. Public spaces protection orders are intended to deal with a particular nuisance or problem in a specific area. This order is made under the Chapter 2 of the Antisocial Behaviour, Crime and Policing Act 2004. What this paper is asking for is to ensure that the law-abiding majority citizen of Hackney can enjoy our public spaces safe from antisocial behaviour. Recently, both the community safety team and the police have seen an increase in the number of ASP associated with dogs. Although we've got PSPO in relation to dog control in Hackney since 2017, the current one will expire in March 2024. But we are giving our time, adequate time to consult on this, in particular over the summer months, where many people use our parks over the summer months. And it is very important that dogs are kept not away, are kept in around the parks in a way that dog owners are able to control their dogs in our parks. this is not just applying to parks, it's applied to all public spaces in Hackney. And what we, at this point, the consultation, the PSPO, the activity that we are asking to prohibit is failing to remove dog feces from land, restricted land, allowing dogs to enter or remain on land identified at the exclusion areas such as playground, children's playground in our park, failing to keep a dog on lead at all times where a land is identified that won't need to do that, as well as failing to comply with the direction given by authorized officer of the council or the police to keep a dog on lead, as well as failing to keep a dog under proper control. All these are within the existing PSPO. The only significant changes we're making, we know what happened down north recently around the accident with dogs. We want to consult again on how many dogs one person can work within the restricted areas, in particular in our park. Or this consultation, as I said, we go out, we're giving ourselves time, but after the consultation, there will be a report that will come back to Cabinet for discussion and approval on how to go. So thanks, Chair. I'll stop there if anyone's got questions.
Thanks very much, Councillor Giles-Weston. I think you illustrated perfectly why it wasn't a flippant remark about how the two strategy, the strategy and the control order sit side by side, about having inclusive parks and green spaces for everyone. And obviously we're a place that deeply values our dogs, but want them responsibly managed. Do we have any questions or comments? No? Happy to agree with the consultation. And thank you and all the officers for what you've done so far and obviously leading the consultation. Thank you. Item 12 is a really important document. We have a lot of responses to scrutiny commissions that come through Cabinet and full council. I think this one is something that means a huge amount to everyone in the room and the two lead Cabinet member in terms of Deputy Mayor Bramble and also Deputy Cabinet member Councillor Etty, and maybe if we can correct Mayoral Advisor for Deputy Cabinet member in the document, that would be great if we can make that amendment. But we obviously thank the scrutiny commissions for their work. I know they've waited for this response for a while, but actually the work that's gone into making it a response that we can all be proud of, I think is being really invaluable, and that has been through the leadership of Deputy Mayor Bramble and Councillor Etty, but also I can see Jackie Burke, the Group Director, on the virtual screen, her teams, and then how they've worked so closely with housing needs. And what I hope people see, and I'm not stealing the thunder of either introduction, but really see how much proactive partnership work across the council has already been delivered in response. So when we're sitting here and seeing the overall response, there are lots of things that we've already put in place that support care leavers on their housing journey and put the voice of care leavers so front and centre. And we had the Hackney of Tomorrow group present informally to Cabinet probably about 6 months ago, and this piece of work and was really important to them. But I don't want to steal any thunder, but just to say how proud I am that we're bringing this here tonight, and hand over, no doubt, to Deputy Mayor Bramble and then Councillor Etty, Deputy Mayor Bramble.
Thank you, Chair, and want to thank all of the colleagues engaged in scrutiny for their part in this. Scrutiny play an integral part of what we do as an administration, and having that external challenge isn't anything that we take for granted, and we do take it seriously. I almost feel like I need to make a disclosure because I used to be a scrutiny chair, so one might think that I'm biased, but they do play an integral role of that external challenge and validity. And you're right, it has taken some time for us to get to this place, but for exactly the reasons that you mentioned. We don't sit and respond or present to scrutiny as a tick box register. It's something that's valued. It's something that is taken seriously on the member and officer side. And actually, it cannot be rushed. And if it takes a bit more time, and that's a bit frustrating, it's better that we take the time and ensure that we're doing due diligence rather than rush through the process. So do thank colleagues that have bared with this, and thank Cabinet also that have obviously had input into this. So since that we've begun this piece of work, I think you mentioned the work of officers in terms of housing needs and children's social care, and how we're looking at a directorate and responding to this. And one of the things that I've always been keen to champion, that you've supported and we feel as a cabinet, is it has to be our response to children. Everything that our children in our care needs does not sit within my portfolio, nor within the officers that lead on children's social care. And anything that takes that approach does our children a disservice. And I think that's the strength of what we've done through this report. I know that Councillor Ette will come in and say a few words as well. So some of the things that we've done is protecting our quota for our children and young people. Of course, there's been no negotiation or any way we were going that to be less, and colleagues agreed with that. We've ensured that care leavers have are named as a priority in our new housing strategy, and that's due to be finalised at the end of this year. 2 dedicated benefit housing officers to work especially with care leavers, so that people that have an understanding of what care leavers' needs are and what they're going through are there to support them. And we've launched a joint protocol between housing and children and families, and to think about how, and that's from the consultation through DLUC, and thinking about how we respond to young people and youth homeless, and how we give that advice to our children and young people, because obviously we don't want the children in our care at some point then to have to go to suffer homelessness. And I know that's something Councillor Ette is championing. There's also some work we're doing around semi-independent work and independent living, and how we make sure that our children and young people are ready for that. And I think the broader piece of work is to talk about the additional work. It isn't just the work we're doing around homelessness, or indeed what we're doing with our young people around housing. It's the work that we're doing with education and post-education. It's what we're doing around employment. It's the work that in terms of what Councillor Williams is doing, and where we liaise in terms of apprenticeships and what that looks like for our children and young people. Because actually, just ensuring they've got a home is not enough. It's how they are sustainable in their living environment. So actually, that's when you begin to bring in all of the work, whether it's around mental health and wellbeing, it's the work that we're doing with Councillor Kennedy, whether it's, you know, Councillor Woodley just talked about what we're doing with open spaces and the importance of that. Everything that we do across the council is beneficiary to the work that our children and young people benefit from. But this particular work is to be acknowledged and celebrated in terms of what we're doing in terms of their lived experience. I'll pause there, Chair, to hand over to my colleague, Councillor Ette.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thanks to Deputy Mayor Bramble. I echo what the Chair have said and what Deputy Mayor Bramble have said. I have to say a big thank you to all the team, Benefits and Housing Needs and Children and Young People and Social Care. Jackie Buck is there on the screen, and everyone. And I think this clearly shows the importance of scrutiny, that we're not taking it for granted. This is scrutiny that was done by Living in Hackney Scrutiny Commission, and not only by them. Every recommendation, the 10 recommendations actually have a voice of our caregivers and other stakeholders. And that clearly shows how serious we are as corporate parents. And in addition to what Deputy Mayor have said, we have gone beyond where we were. We have commissioned Settle that will be offering the caregivers post-tenancy support. And also she's talked about the joint protocol. We're not stopping at that. What we are doing is also to make sure we amend our housing register to make sure our care leavers register at 18 instead of 21. And for us to do this, it will require an equalities impact assessment, the legal consultation, and the recommendation will be reviewed and approved by the cabinet. And we will definitely be doing this before the next beginning of the next financial year. So this is a very crucial work when it comes to our care leavers, and it's still ongoing because this is a cross services, housing strategy, housing benefits and housing needs, children and young people, and like Councillor Bramble said, the private rented sector is there as well. You have the work department that Councillor Carol Williams is chairing. So it's a combination, and our care leavers means a lot to us. They are our children, they are our young people, and we are their corporate parents, and we will continue to do everything to make sure they are comfortable. And above all, this says a lot about our manifesto. Mayor Glanville, this is your manifesto. It clearly says, when we say something, we do it. We say it and we action it. We do it. That's Hackney, and that's what we are known for. Thank you.
As I suggested, two fantastic contributions from Deputy Mayor Bramble and Councillor Etty, which go to the heart of why they've been so passionate about this work, and that real sense from both of them, the work doesn't stop tonight. Actually, this is a huge launching pad for further and future work to go onwards, and I know it will also come up in our qualities work in July as well. So are we happy to agree that and look forward to the things that will come back to Cabinet over the course of the year to implement the things that are still outstanding? I know you've got a very small contribution you wanted to make.
Chair, I just wanted to say the comment that Councillor Etty talked about moving the housing register from 21 down to 18. I think that's beyond the work of scrutiny, and that's what we as lead members and you as Cabinet have been championing. And I just want to say that while we respect and absolutely want to applaud the work of scrutiny, it doesn't mean as Cabinet members that we're silent and asleep on this. We are absolutely leading the charge of thinking what do we need to do better as well. And I just want to acknowledge the work on colleagues on this.
A very powerful point. It's our leadership as much as it is the scrutiny challenge. So thank you. Are we happy to agree the recommendations? And I really value that extra time that we spent on that item. Agreed. Thank you. So item 13, appointments and nominations to outside bodies for noting. There should be no surprises here. We've seen this formally and informally in many different places. I think this is just the icing on the governance cake. Clearly, in this document are loads of people known to us, both on the council and beyond, but there is absolutely zero point in doing an elaborate set of declarations. This has been through proper process. We know who these people are. They're part of our community or the council, and they're made through these appointments. We're happy to agree them. Great. Deputy Mayor Bramble, local authority governors. I've never heard of James, I think Ross, is it?
No, just to say, as we normally do, we just want to thank all of the governors that dedicate their time to support schools and to help schools navigate towards the challenges and celebrate the fantastic work that they're doing, but also when we have to do the work, whether it's around child queue or looking at exclusions, our schools are up for the challenge, but, you know, want to commend that our school system has gone from being one of the worst systems in the country to now one of the best, and looking at how we go forward. And our governors are instrumental of that, and just the support that they're given by Hackney Education. I know the Mayor and I have been out recently and governors have approached us and talked about the support that Hackney Education offer with government, that critical challenge, but support and information, which is key for facilitating anyone in that role. So just want to thank all governors. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And I wasn't being flippant in not knowing, it was more a declaratory point. And obviously the Blossom Federation is doing some incredible work at the moment. So are we happy to agree their appointment? Agreed. Thank you. That reaches the end of the meeting. I should have said it in the opening remarks. I just wanted to thank everyone in the room and beyond for their work around celebrating Windrush last week. It's an onward celebration and the onward campaign work. Everyone in the room knows who they are, so I'm not going to name them, but it's been an incredibly rich programme with the fantastic tea party that we held at the town hall last week. But anyone watching, go and look. There's still plenty of ways to get involved, including the Amelia Gentleman event at the library on Thursday and Felt Forward on. We've also, before we next meet in the room, either full council or cabinet, got our Hackney delegation to Pride, and on the same weekend, our International Co-ops Weekend and Sustainability Day taking place on Sunday. So plenty of ways for residents to get involved in our work. Thanks very much everyone for joining. Thanks Cabinet colleagues. Close the meeting and look forward to seeing us again in July.